Strangers brought together by a catastrophic storm.
I think it's the biggest winter we had since the El Nino years.
Lives intertwined by unexpected circumstances and a series of choices.
We didn't know which way we wanted to go, so we flipped a rock because no one had a coin.
I just stuffed my pack up through the hole, hoping.
9.5 hours in which those choices will seal their fate.
Okay, I'm facing death here, and I just really didn't want to die that way.
When life takes an unexpected turn, split-second decisions can mean the difference between life and death. And surviving nature's wrath can sometimes be a simple twist of fate. It's late spring in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. Residents are still digging out after a record winter that brought more than 60 feet of snow and an unusually cold spring. Now, as temperatures rise and the enormous snowpack begins to melt, rivers are flowing with twice the force as usual. But on this warm and sunny June day, no one suspects the sudden thaw hides any danger, much less that it could trap a skilled hiker and trigger a life and death struggle that will unfold over the next 9 hours, 24 minutes.
June 14th was an absolutely gorgeous day. Blue sky, bright sunshine, not a cloud in the sky.
51-year-old Marcia Rasmussen lives outside the tiny town of Squaw Valley, Fresno County, in the heart of California ranch country. Marcia's passion is long-distance running. An ultramarathoner, she regularly competes in races of distances up to 100 miles or more.
I started running ultramarathons because I wasn't athletic as a child. So when I found something like this that I could do, I really latched onto it.
The morning of June 14th, 2011, looked to be a routine day in Marcia's demanding training regimen.
I have a training schedule that I follow, and I was hoping to do a 30-mile run that day.
She checks the trail conditions at Mineral King Valley in Sequoia National Park. With its rocky terrain and high elevation, it's long been one of Marcia's favorite training spots. But the website reveals that this year, the unseasonably cold spring has frozen the snowpack in place long after it would have normally melted.
There was no place in the high country that had 30 miles of trail open that wasn't under snow. So I changed my plan and decided to just go up to Mineral King and check the snow conditions, just see how it was.
Marcia has no idea that her last-minute change in plans will set off a chain of events that will transpire over the next 8 hours, 39 minutes. Still, she prepares for a typical day of training, wearing shorts and a sleeveless running top and packing her gear. Only she forgets one item.
Usually I carry something warm. This particular day, I had my fleece jacket in my hand and I set it down on the coffee table on the way out.
It seems to be a small oversight, but it's the first in a series that will threaten her very survival in a little over 8 hours. 30 miles to the east, Visalia native Stephen Baricki is making plans to go for a day hike.
Hey Chris, how's it going?
He's been looking at webcams of the Mineral King area to see how accessible it is.
Bright blue skies, no clouds, everything looked pretty awesome.
Stephen is an avid hiker and amateur photographer who is well aware of the dangers posed in the remote wilderness.
The backcountry is not a playground. Like 1 minute, like the sun's shining, the next minute there's clouds coming in and you're getting snowed on. You have to know what you're doing, you have to be prepared.
But nothing can prepare Stephen for what he will face in just 7 hours, 56 minutes.
Anything can happen up there, anything.
Back in Sequoia National Park, Marcia pulls into the park entrance and begins her ascent up the steep and windy road that leads to the Mineral King Valley. Along the quiet road, Marcia realizes she has broken one of the cardinal rules of hiking alone in the wilderness. She hasn't told anyone where she is going, not even her husband, John.
He had some good ideas of the places that I like to go, but there wasn't any way I could predict exactly where I would be.
Nor can she predict how bad this omission will turn out to be. when in 6 hours 51 minutes, she will find herself in the challenge of a lifetime. Meanwhile, in Visalia, Stephen Baricki is packing up his camera gear. With his demanding work schedule, Stephen rarely has a day off, but this is an unusual day. It turns out that his friends and fellow Visalia locals, Chris Edwards and Mike Voiles, are off too.
We just decided, let's take advantage of this and go to the mountains and get out of the city.
Stephen, Mike, and Chris start out in the direction of the Mineral King Valley, stopping at a nearby country store to pick up provisions for the day.
It's hot out there.
I usually take extra water up there with me because you never know what's going to happen.
The three friends have no idea that in the next 6 hours 9 minutes, the extra water will play a role in the destiny of a complete stranger. In Sequoia National Park, Marcia is just pulling into the Mineral King parking lot. Before setting out, she checks to make sure she has the water and food she needs. It is just 5 hours 49 minutes until her fate will be sealed. As Marcia starts up the trail, still covered with snow and ice, the June day sun is already high in the sky.
I was a little bit hot when I started, even at 8,000 feet.
As she climbs, she notices the creeks are bursting with snowmelt, flooding the trail.
There's really no way to do this trail without getting your feet wet.
After running nearly 5 miles, Marcia makes a crucial decision to turn around and head back down the trail towards her car.
Since I was alone out there, I thought that I should probably turn around and go home early, just for safety's sake.
There are 3 hours 14 minutes left on the clock when at 9,500 feet elevation, Marcia reaches the spot where the trail crosses Franklin Creek. Here, a powerful waterfall feeds the raging water below. Despite the hot sun, 4 feet of packed snow is covering the creek, creating a snow bridge. Snow bridges are a common sight in the high Sierras in late spring, formed when snow freezes over a body of water. When the weather turns warm, the bridge begins to melt from above as well as from below, carving out an icy tunnel buried under the surface. Marcia, aware of the danger, had checked to make sure the bridge was safe on the way up.
Snow bridges are notoriously dangerous, so I picked up a stick, poked the snow. It was rock solid.
But as Marcia crosses for a second time, suddenly the snow under her feet collapses, and she is instantly sucked to the icy water below.
1 second I was walking along the snow, and the next second I was immersed.
She is now trapped under the frozen snow bridge, crashing downstream in the raging current. The water is near freezing. With 3 hours 6 minutes to go in her ordeal, Marcia fears she will die if she doesn't get out soon.
This is very, very cold water. I just knew people don't live very long in water this cold.
High in the Sierra Nevada mountains, 51-year-old Marcia Rasmussen is trapped under a mile-long snow bridge in the icy waters of Franklin Creek. There are still 3 hours 5 minutes to go before her nightmare will be over.
There was not much time to think. I just worked on keeping my head above the water.
Desperate and in a stroke of luck, she manages to grab onto a tiny branch.
It was about as big around as a pencil.
At this point, the twig is her only hope. She pulls herself into a small alcove above the water and crouches in a fetal position on top of a rock.
I realized that I wouldn't survive there very long, but my chances were a lot better than when I was in the water.
Marcia huddles, cold and shivering, above the water, but below the packed snow. There is no way out. The force of the water is too strong to go back up, and she has stopped just short of a 10-foot waterfall that drops into a rocky canyon below. She still has 3 hours 4 minutes left to endure in this terrifying situation. unbeknownst to her, in the valley far below, three friends, Stephen Baricki, Chris Edwards, and Mike Voiles, are just pulling into the parking lot at the head of the trail, preparing for a leisurely day hike.
We weren't going to do any of the higher trails. We were going to stick to the kind of easier trails just because we knew that there was a lot of snow, and we weren't really prepared to go up for anything more than just a day hike.
As they start up the trail, they quickly come to a fork where the trail splits.
We decided that we didn't know which way we wanted to go, down into the valley or up along a ridge. So we flipped a rock
This side?
because no one had a coin.
We're gonna go up to the mountain, smooth. We're gonna go down the creek. You serious? Yeah.
The hikers could have taken either trail through the valley, but in a twist of fate, the rock toss leads them up the mountain in the direction of Franklin Creek, where Marcia is trapped. As they continue on the trail, crossing the same swollen streams that Marcia had run through just hours before, they have no idea how crucial the rock toss will be to the drama that will transpire over the next 2 hours, 39 minutes. Meanwhile, high above them, Marcia is still imprisoned under 4 feet of snow and ice. She is completely alone.
I hadn't seen another hiker all day. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, so it was fairly unlikely that anyone would come along.
Marcia knows the real threat is freezing to death in the sub-zero cave. She is left with only one option.
If I was going to be rescued, I would be the one who had to do the rescuing. So I started to dig just above my head. I remember thinking that chances are I wasn't going to make it out of there.
After an hour of hiking, Stephen, Mike, and Chris reach Franklin Creek.
The waterfall is still flowing pretty aggressively. There's a giant Snowbridge there where the creek should be.
In a decision that will later turn out to be critical, the hikers bury their water bottles in the side of the Snowbridge to keep them cool. They begin to explore and take pictures. They have no idea that just 60 feet downstream, under the snow, Marcia is struggling to survive. She is close enough that she should be able to hear them. But with 1 hour, 44 minutes still to go in her crisis, the roaring stream is drowning out any noise from above.
I kept talking to myself out loud, telling myself, dig, just dig.
Marcia is slowly losing consciousness as hypothermia begins to set in.
I remember looking down at my arms and legs. They were just deathly white. I thought, you know, I really don't have long here.
The relentless winter of 2011 has turned the icy waters of Franklin Creek into a deadly snow tunnel. Marcia Rasmussen is trapped in this tunnel, slowly freezing to death.
I was thinking that, okay, I'm facing death here, and I just really didn't want to die that way.
Marcia is desperately trying to dig her way through 4 feet of packed snow. She still has 1 hour, 24 minutes to go before her ordeal will end. While Marcia struggles to hang on, a retired National Park Ranger, Ed Petrovsky, has just pulled into the trailhead parking lot and is packing his gear for an overnight in the woods. He has no idea that in just 1 hour, 9 minutes, he will be cast as a player in a drama that is unfolding in the waters above.
Late in the afternoon, I loaded up my backpack and started out.
In the meantime, day hikers Stephen Baricki, Chris Edwards, and Mike Voiles are exploring the area around Franklin Creek. They are just feet from where Marcia is trapped, yet neither knows the other is nearby. The clock ticks with 24 minutes left in the ordeal. Marcia, desperate to be rescued, is beginning to lose consciousness. Just before her fate is sealed for good, she breaks through to the sky above. But the hole isn't big enough to climb through, and time is running out.
I knew that I was losing it fast.
In a last burst of energy, Marcia manages to widen the hole to 6 inches across. Then, with 9 minutes to go in her terrifying situation, she makes a fateful decision. She takes off her water pack and pushes it up through the hole onto the surface of the snow.
I just stuffed my pack up through the hole, hoping.
But she is also preparing for the worst.
I was thinking that if I died there, it would mark the location of my body.
With just 2 minutes left in the developing drama, Stephen and Mike return to the Snowbridge to collect the last of their water before heading down the mountain. In what will turn out to be the biggest twist of the day, Stephen sees Marcia's pack sitting on top of the Snowbridge, just feet away.
I looked around, but I didn't see anyone, so I decided to go across and check it out.
Stephen could have easily decided to walk away, but for reasons even he can't explain, he decides to explore. And at just the right moment.
Help me! Help me!
I was in shock. I couldn't believe it.
There's someone down here! What?
Stephen and Mike begin digging. There are just 54 seconds left in the unfolding drama. The two quickly widen the hole and reach in.
Steve and Mike grabbed my hands.
We're gonna get you out of there!
And just pulled me straight up through the hole.
Oh, gosh! Oh, gosh! Here!
The rescuers drag Marcia off the snow and ice, remove their shirts, and attempt to warm her. The clock ticks to 0 when 51-year-old Marcia Rasmussen is plucked from her icy death tomb. But she is still at serious risk of permanently losing sensation throughout her body.
Her body temperature was really, really low.
You could see that there was frostbite and cuts on her hands from digging.
She was not responsive, trembling. She looked like she was not gonna make it, honestly.
The three friends know Marcia is in grave danger and desperately needs medical attention.
Well, I knew that it would be best if I would go find help.
Mike takes off down the mountain.
We're back. Run, Mike, run!
When seemingly out of nowhere, Ed Petrovsky appears.
As I approached Franklin Creek, I was confronted by a man who was running from the other direction. As quickly as I could, I accompanied him across the Snowbridge.
When Ed sees Marcia, he knows they must raise her body temperature or she risks further harm.
She was shaking violently, and she appeared to be in a severe state of hypothermia.
Not only has Ed come along the trail at the right moment, but he happens to have the right gear to warm her up.
I got out my sleeping bag and wrapped that around her.
Mike and Chris take off running down the mountain in search of more help.
We knew that there was a phone that was down in the parking lot of Mineral King. That was our goal, was to reach that payphone.
But the payphone in the parking lot is out of order.
We got inside of Steve's truck and we drove as fast as we could.
But will they find help in time? Marcia Rasmussen is battling the effects of severe hypothermia after being pulled from a glacial snow cave. Her rescuers work quickly to warm her up.
My first thought was, this is a potential life-threatening situation, and she's deathly cold.
Meanwhile, at the bottom of the mountain and miles down the road, two hikers, Chris and Mike, are desperately searching for a payphone. They find one and call for help.
Chris called 911 and he expressed that we'd found a woman who was trapped under ice and maybe hypothermic.
A rescue unit is dispatched, but it is a full hour away. The two fear Marcia is still in peril.
It's like you're in a freezer. So if she was wet and that cold, it didn't look good.
Back on the mountain, Marcia is beginning to regain feeling in her arms and legs, but she is not out of the woods yet.
I tried to see if I could stand up, and I couldn't. My legs just collapsed underneath me.
A Sequoia park ranger who's also been alerted arrives to aid in Marcia's rescue. He radios to medics who are en route in a helicopter.
Walk her out. Over.
She insists on walking down the trail on her own 2 feet.
By the time the helicopter arrived, I was still a little bit weak, but I was able to walk pretty normally.
Marcia Rasmussen's condition is stabilized, and she is released. The same raging snowmelt that put Marcia's life in danger took at least 9 lives in California that spring. Headlines throughout the state warned of the unusually powerful waters. Less than a month after her own near-death experience, Marcia is back on the trail, training for another ultra-marathon. She knows how lucky she is.
She benefited from a chain of events that are so improbable as to be almost unbelievable.
After a little time has passed, you know, the way I think about it is, wow, that was a close call.
There we go.
Whether you believe in God, whether you want to say that it was a higher power, I tend to think that somebody was watching out for me.
At a recent reunion,
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you too. So you're fully recovered now?
Marcia's rescuers credit her survival to her endurance training and her will to live.
Just have a little scar on my knee, you know. No big deal.
A lot of people probably would have given up or panicked. She survived because of her sheer determination.
She's a survivor, and she's a lot tougher than I am.
Boy, I'm glad you guys came along.
I've had a lot of other close calls. If I have a guardian angel, he's probably just worn out, tired, and exhausted from taking care of me.
Strangers brought together by a catastrophic storm.
The noise of it was just god-awful.
Spring has frozen the snowpack in place long after it would have normally melted.
There was no place in the high country that had 30 miles of trail open that wasn't under snow. So I changed my plan and decided to just go up to Mineral King and check the snow conditions, just see how it was.
Marcia has no idea that her last-minute change in plans will set off a chain of events that will transpire over the next 8 hours, 39 minutes. Still, she prepares for a typical day of training, wearing shorts and a sleeveless running top and packing her gear. Only she...
Athletic as a child, so when I found something like this that I could do, I really latched onto it.
The morning of June 14th, 2011, looked to be a routine day in Marcia's demanding training regimen.
I have a training schedule that I follow, and I was hoping to do a 30-mile run that day.
She checks the trail conditions at Mineral King Valley in Sequoia National Park. With its rocky terrain and high elevation, it's long been one of Marcia's favorite training spots. But the website reveals that this year, the unseasonably cold strangers brought together by a catastrophic storm.
I think it's the biggest winter we had since the El Nino years.
Lives intertwined by unexpected circumstances and a series of choices.
We didn't know which way we wanted to go, so we flipped a rock because no one had a coin.
I just stuffed my pack up through the hole, hoping.
9.5 hours in which those choices will seal their fate.
Okay, I'm facing death here, and I just really didn't want to die that way.
When life takes an unexpected turn, split-second decisions can mean the difference between life and death. And surviving nature's wrath can sometimes be a simple twist of fate. It's late spring in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. Residents are still digging out after a record winter that brought more than 60 feet of snow and an unusually cold spring. Now, as temperatures rise and the enormous snowpack begins to melt, rivers are flowing with twice the force as usual. But on this warm and sunny June day, no one suspects the sudden thaw hides any danger, much less that it could trap a skilled hiker and trigger a life and death struggle that will unfold over the next 9 hours, 24 minutes.
June 14th was an absolutely gorgeous day. Blue sky, bright sunshine, not a cloud in the sky.
51-year-old Marcia Rasmussen lives outside the tiny town of Squaw Valley, Fresno County, in the heart of California ranch country. Marcia's passion is long-distance running. An ultramarathoner, she regularly competes in races of distances up to 100 miles or more.
I started running ultramarathons because I wasn't